Cathara pressed herself against the cold crystal wall, her skin changing color to match the purple and blue patterns around her. She had been watching the aliens fight for 3 hours now, and her legs were getting tired. But she could not move. Not yet. The big ships floated in space like metal mountains. Each one was bigger than her entire home city. The Zephyrians had ships that glowed with white light, covered in weapons that could destroy planets. The Korthak ships looked like glass, puzzles, all sharp edges and strange angles. The hegemony brought living ships that moved like giant fish through the darkness. They called it the War Games, but Cathara knew it was more than a game. When these aliens fought here, it decided who controlled trade routes, who got the best, planets who lived and who died across the galaxy. The winners got everything. The losers got nothing. Her people, the Velthari, always got nothing. Cathara watched as the Zephyrian commander gave orders to his crew. She had seen him before. He was tall and proud, with skin that looked like metal and eyes that glowed red. His ship fired first, sending bright plasma beams across space. The Korthak ships moved together like a school of fish, turning and spinning in perfect formation. Their crystal weapons sent rainbow lights dancing through the darkness. The Velthari had no ships like these. They had no weapons that could punch holes in moons. They had no armies that could conquer star systems. All they had was the ability to hide and watch. For 50 years they had been the galaxy's invisible observers, recording everything but changing nothing. Cathara's grandmother used to tell her stories about the old days, when the Velthari tried to join the big civilizations. They had offered their services as scouts and information gatherers. The aliens had laughed. Some had tried to make the Velthari into slaves. Others had simply ignored them until they went away. So they learned to stay hidden. They watched from the shadows and recorded everything. They knew which species was planning to attack which planet. They knew where the best resources were hidden. They knew the weaknesses of every major power in the galaxy. But knowledge without power was just interesting facts that nobody wanted to hear. The battle was getting exciting now. A hegemony bioship had wrapped its tentacles around a Korthak vessel, trying to crush it like a giant squid. The Korthak ship was spinning, its crystal hull cutting through the bioship's flesh. Green blood floated in clouds around them both. The Zephyrian commander saw his chance. He ordered his ship to charge its main weapon. Cathara had seen this weapon before. It could cut a battleship in half with one shot. The bioship and the Korthak vessel were so busy fighting each other that they would never see it coming. But then something strange happened. A small ship appeared at the edge of the battle zone. It was tiny compared to the warships, no bigger than a shuttle. Its hull was scratched and dented, held together with patches and prayer. This was not a warship. This was a freighter, the kind of ship that carried supplies between planets. The big ship stopped fighting. All of them turned to look at the little vessel. Cathara could hear their communications on her scanner. "Unknown vessel, you are in a restricted area," said the Zephyrian commander. His voice was cold and angry. "Leave immediately, or be destroyed." The small ship's pilot responded, and Cathara was surprised to hear a human voice. Humans were new to space, barely 100 years out from their home planet. Most aliens thought they were useful only for manual labor and cleaning jobs. "Sorry about that," the human said. His voice was calm and friendly. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the merchant vessel Lucky Strike. I took a wrong turn somewhere and ended up here. Mind if I ask what's going on? This looks fascinating." Cathara's skin shifted to a darker purple. She was confused. The human was not running away. He was asking questions. The Korthak Collective spoke next, their voice like 1,000 whispers speaking at once. "Human vessel, this is a military exercise. You do not belong here. Depart immediately." "Military exercise?" Jake sounded genuinely interested. "Like war games? I've heard about these but never seen one. Would it be okay if I just watched from over here? I promise I won't get in the way." The bioship's pilot laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The primitive wishes to observe its betters. How amusing." "Let it watch," said the Zephyrian commander. "Perhaps it will learn something before it dies of old age on some backwater planet." Jake moved his ship to a safe distance and just watched. Cathara could not believe it. The human was doing exactly what she was doing. But he was doing it. Openly, without hiding, the battle resumed. The Zephyrians won as they usually did. Their plasma weapons and shield technology were just too advanced for most opponents. The Korthak ships retreated in formation, their crystal hulls cracked but not broken. The bioship limped away, leaving a trail of green blood in space. Cathara expected the human to leave now that the show was over. Instead, Jake's ship moved closer to the abandoned mining station where she was hiding. She pressed herself flatter against the crystal wall, her skin shifting to match the surface perfectly. But then Jake's voice came over the open communication channel. "You know," he said, and Cathara realized with shock that he was talking to her. Watching alone gets pretty boring after a while. Her heart stopped beating for a moment. How had he seen her? Her camouflage was perfect. She had been watching these battles for months, and no one had ever detected her presence. "I've been coming to these things for about 3 months now," Jake continued, still talking to what looked like empty space. "Started by accident like today, but they're fascinating. All this advanced technology, these incredible strategies, and yet..." He paused, and Cathara could see him through her ship's view screen. He was young for a human with brown hair and kind eyes. He looked thoughtful, not threatening. "I keep seeing patterns they're missing. Basic stuff, really. They're so focused on their big weapons and fancy tech that they forget about the simple things." Cathara found herself moving before she could stop herself. She stepped out from behind the crystal formation, her skin slowly shifting back to its natural blue-green color. If the human could see her anyway, there was no point in hiding. Jake turned toward her with a smile. Not surprise, not fear, just a genuine friendly smile. "Hello there," he said. "I'm Jake Morrison. I was wondering when you'd decide to come out and say hi." Cathara stood frozen for a long moment, her skin flickering between colors as her emotions fought for control. No one had ever noticed her during her observations. The Velthari had perfected the art of being invisible over generations. Yet, this human had not only seen her but had known she was there for some time. "My name is Cathara," she said finally, her translator device turning her clicks and whistles into words Jake could understand. "Nice to meet you, Cathara." Jake leaned, back in his pilot's chair looking completely relaxed. "I have to ask, how long have you been watching these war games?" 8 months, she admitted. "I come here every time they hold a battle. My people, we watch. It is what we do." "Your people are the Velthari, right?" Jake asked. "I've heard a little about you. Great scouts, excellent at gathering information. But why do you stay hidden?" Cathara's skin darkened to a deep blue. It was a question that made her uncomfortable. "Because we are weak. We have no great weapons, no powerful ships. The major species tolerate us only because we are useful sometimes. If we made ourselves noticed here, they would tell us to leave. Or, they might listen to what you have to say," Jake suggested. "You've been watching these battles for 8 months. I bet you know more about their tactics than they know about themselves." "Knowledge without power is worthless," Cathara said, repeating something her grandmother had taught her. Jake laughed, but it was not a cruel sound. "That's where you're wrong. Knowledge is the most powerful thing in the universe. You just need to know how to use it." He gestured toward the space where the battle had taken place. Cleanup crews were already working, gathering debris and preparing the area for tomorrow's fight. "Take that battle we just watched," Jake said. "The Zephyrians won because they have the best shields and the strongest weapons. But did you notice how they always start their attacks?" Cathara nodded. "Plasma bombardment from maximum range, followed by a charge when the enemy's shields are weakened." "Exactly. And the Korthak? They always move in formation. Never as individuals. They share information instantly through their group mind, but they also all make the same decisions at the same time. Right again? And the hegemony bioships? They adapt to whatever attacks them," Cathara said, getting interested despite herself. "But they need time to change, and they can only focus on one type of threat at a time." Jake grinned. "See? You know their weaknesses better than they do. The Zephyrians are predictable. The Korthak can't think outside their group. The hegemony ships are slow to adapt when facing multiple threats. But knowing these things does not matter. Cathara protested. My people have no warships. We could not challenge them even if we wanted to. Who says you need warships? Jake asked. Look at my ship. The Lucky Strike is a freighter. She's not built for fighting. But I bet with the right plan we could give those big shots a real surprise. Cathara stared at him. We? You mean humans and Velthari working together? Why not? You have the best intelligence gathering in the galaxy. My people, well, we're good at thinking outside the box. We don't always do things the way they're supposed to be done. The war games have rules, Cathara said slowly. Any ship can enter if it meets basic safety requirements. The registration fee is small. Most species enter their best military vessels, but the rules do not require it. So a merchant ship could enter? Technically, yes, but it would be destroyed in minutes. Jake's grin got wider. Not if it had the best scout in the galaxy helping it avoid trouble. Not if it fought smart instead of fighting fair. Cathara felt something she had never experienced before. It was excitement, but also fear. The idea was crazy. Her people had never done anything like this. They watched, they recorded, they stayed safe. They did not take risks. Even if this were possible, she said carefully, why would you want to do it? Humans are new to space, but you are building your own place in the galaxy. Why risk making enemies of the major powers? Jake was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. Because I'm tired of being treated like we don't matter. Humans get the worst jobs, the lowest pay, the least respect, and it sounds like your people get treated even worse. Maybe it's time to show them that being small doesn't mean being weak. The next war games are in 2 weeks, Cathara said before she could stop herself. Is that enough time to put together a plan? Cathara's skin shifted to a pale green, the color of uncertainty. I would need to talk to others of my people, and you would need a crew that understands what they are getting into. I have a crew, Jake said. 2 of them anyway. Lisa Park is my engineer. She can make miracles happen with scrap metal and determination. Carlos Vega used to be in Earth's defense forces until they decided he was too creative for their liking. Creative? He kept winning war games by cheating. Well, they called it cheating. He called it using every advantage available. Cathara considered this. And you trust them with something this dangerous? I trust them with my life every day. This would be no different. It would be very different, Cathara said. If we fail, we die. If we succeed, we make enemies of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. And if we do nothing, we stay invisible forever, Jake pointed out. Is that really living? Cathara looked at the human for a long time. He was young and probably foolish. His ship was barely holding together. His species was barely a century into space travel. By all logic, his plan was impossible, but she found herself wanting to try anyway. There are others of my people who might help, she said slowly. Nexhai is old and wise, keeper of our historical records. She knows every battle that has been fought in this sector for the past 100 years. Yorith is young and fascinated by alien technology. She has studied the ships that come here. Sounds like the beginning of a team to me, Jake said. This is madness, Cathara said. Probably, Jake agreed, but it might also be brilliant. Want to find out which? Cathara's skin shifted to bright silver, the color of decision. Meet me here tomorrow. I will bring the others, if they agree to come. You bring your crew. We will see if this crazy idea might actually work. Jake nodded. Tomorrow it is, and Cathara, thanks for not staying hidden. As Jake's ship disappeared into the darkness, Cathara realized she was no longer just an observer. She was about to become a participant. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The next day, Cathara arrived at the meeting point with her heart beating fast. She had spent the night talking to Nexhai and Yorith, trying to convince them that Jake's plan was not complete insanity. It had not been easy. Nexhai was old, Even by Velthari standards, her skin permanently marked with the deep blue patterns of age and wisdom. She had watched the galaxy change for over 2 centuries and had little faith in grand gestures. "Child," she had said, "I have seen species rise and fall. The strong survive by being strong. The weak survive by being invisible. We have chosen our path." But Yorith had been different. Young and curious, she had always been fascinated by the technology of other species. When Kethara explained what the human had proposed, Yorith's skin had shifted to bright yellow with excitement. A chance to work with alien technology? To see their ships from the inside? To help design new strategies? Yorith had practically bounced with enthusiasm. "When do we start?" In the end, it was Nexhi's curiosity that won her over. "A human who can see through Velthari camouflage," she had mused. "This Jake Morrison is either very dangerous or very gifted. I must see for myself which." Now all 3 Velthari waited nervously as Jake's ship approached. The Lucky Strike looked even more beaten up in the daylight, its hull covered in patches and scratches that told stories of close calls and hard luck. Jake's crew was exactly what Kethara had expected. Lisa Park was small and energetic, with short black hair and hands that were permanently stained with engine grease. She talked fast and moved faster, already examining the Velthari with obvious interest. "Fascinating," Lisa said, walking around Kethara. "The camouflage system must be based on specialized skin cells that can change both color and texture. The energy requirements alone." "Lisa," Jake said gently, "maybe save the scientific analysis for later?" Carlos Vega was the opposite of Lisa, in many ways. Tall and calm, he spoke little but watched everything. His eyes were the eyes of a soldier, always looking for threats and opportunities. When he shook hands with the Velthari, his grip was firm but careful. "I've read about your people," Carlos said to Nexhi. "Your species has observed more battles than any other in the galaxy. That's intelligence worth more than any weapon." Nexhi's skin shifted to a pleased purple. "You understand the value of information. Good. Too many species think only of firepower." The group spent the first hour simply talking, sharing information and getting to know each other. Kethara was amazed at how easily the humans accepted their alien allies. There was no fear, no suspicion, just genuine interest and respect. "So," Jake said eventually, "let's talk about what we're really trying to do here. We want to enter the war games, but we're not trying to win through superior force. We can't. What we can do is win through superior strategy." "The war games follow a standard format," Nexhi explained. "First round is elimination. 12 ships enter, 4 survive. Second round is semifinals, 2 matches of 2 ships each. Then the final match between the 2 winners." "What are the rules about modifications to ships?" Lisa asked. "Minimal," Yorith said, her skin brightening with interest. "Weapons must be within certain power limits. Ships must pass basic safety inspections, but there are no restrictions on defensive systems or non-weapon technology." Lisa and Yorith looked at each other and grinned. It was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. "What about crew restrictions?" Carlos asked. "No limits on crew size or composition," Nexhi said. "Most species bring their best military officers, but the rules do not require it. So we could have a mixed crew? Humans and Velthari working together?" "Yes, though no one has ever tried such a thing before." Carlos nodded slowly. "Good. Combined crews mean combined skills. Jake's right about humans being good at unconventional thinking. But we're also good at adapting quickly to new situations. Your people are excellent at gathering and analyzing information. Together we might actually have a chance," Jake finished. Over the next several days, the unlikely team worked together to develop their strategy. They met in secret, usually on abandoned stations or hidden asteroid bases where they could not be observed. Lisa and Yorith became an unstoppable team. The young Velthari's knowledge of alien technology, combined with Lisa's human engineering creativity, produced ideas that neither species could have developed alone. "Look at this," Yorith said excitedly during one of their sessions. "Velthari camouflage technology works by manipulating electromagnetic fields around the skin. But what if we applied the same principles to a ship's hull? We could make the ship look like space debris on sensors, Lisa said, her eyes lighting up. Or even make it appear to be something completely different. The power requirements would be enormous, Urith pointed out. Not if we only used it in short bursts, Lisa countered. Like a stealth system that only activates when we need to hide. Meanwhile, Carlos and Nexahai worked on tactical planning. The old Velthari's vast knowledge of galactic military history, combined with Carlos's unconventional strategic thinking, created battle plans that were both brilliant and completely unexpected. The key, Carlos explained, is not to fight the way they expect us to fight. Every major species has developed their tactics based on fighting other major species. They've never had to deal with an opponent that doesn't follow the same rules. Guerrilla warfare, Nexai said thoughtfully. Hit-and-run tactics. Use their size and power against them. Exactly. In Earth's history, small forces have defeated much larger armies by refusing to fight fair. There's no reason the same principles won't work in space. Cathara found herself working mostly with Jake, learning human tactics and teaching him about Velthari observation techniques. She was amazed at how quickly he learned, and how easily he accepted ideas that would seem impossible to most species. The thing about humans, Jake told her one day, is that we don't really believe in impossible. We just think of it as a problem we haven't solved yet. And the thing about Velthari, Cathara replied, is that we see everything but rarely act on what we see. Perhaps together we can find balance. As the days passed, their plan took shape. The Lucky Strike would be modified with Velthari camouflage technology, making it appear to be a helpless freighter while hiding advanced sensors and defensive systems. The crew would be mixed, with each species contributing their strengths. Most importantly, they would not fight like anyone expected them to fight. Registration is tomorrow, Jake announced during their final planning meeting. Everyone still willing to do this? Cathara looked around at their small group. A human merchant, an engineer, a former soldier, an elderly archivist, and a young technician. By any reasonable measure, they had no chance against the galaxy's greatest military powers. I have been watching from the sidelines my entire life, she said finally. I am ready to join the game. The others nodded in agreement. Tomorrow they would register for the war games. In a week they would either be dead or they would have changed the galaxy forever. Neither possibility seemed quite real yet. Registration day arrived with the weight of destiny. Jake stood at the registration terminal, his hands steady despite the enormity of what they were about to do. The Lucky Strike floated nearby, looking exactly like what she was supposed to be, a beaten-up old freighter barely worth the metal she was made from. The modifications were invisible to casual inspection. Lisa and Yorith had done brilliant work, integrating Velthari camouflage technology into the ship's hull in ways that would not show up on standard scans. The engine signatures had been altered to seem even weaker than they actually were. Every system that mattered was hidden behind layers of carefully crafted deception. Ship name? Asked the board registration clerk, a Korthak drone whose crystal body reflected the lights of the station. Lucky Strike, Jake said calmly. Class? Modified cargo freighter. The drone's head tilted slightly, the first sign of interest it had shown. Cargo freighter? You are aware this is a military combat exercise? The rules say any ship that meets safety requirements can enter, Jake replied. We meet the requirements. Crew composition? Mixed species, 3 humans, 3 Velthari. Now the drone was definitely interested. Velthari, the observer species? This is most unusual. Unusual but legal, Jake said firmly. The drone processed this for several long moments, probably consulting with the collective hive mind. Finally, it spoke again. Entry fee is 5,000 galactic credits. Combat waiver must be signed acknowledging risk of death or serious injury. Do you wish to proceed? We do. 20 minutes later, Jake walked back to his ship with official registration documents in hand. They were now officially entered in the 847th Galactic War Games. In 3 days, they would face 11 other ships in combat, with only 4 survivors. advancing to the semifinals. Word of their entry spread quickly through the station. Within hours, representatives from all the major powers had arrived to see the newcomers for themselves. Admiral Corkseye of the Zephyrian Empire was tall and imposing, his metallic skin gleaming under the station lights. He examined the lucky, struck with obvious contempt. "A cargo hauler," he said to his aide. "These primitives seek death. We shall accommodate them quickly." The Korthak Collective sent 3 drones to analyze their ship. They spent an hour taking detailed scans, but the camouflage technology held. All they saw was exactly what Jake wanted them to see: a pathetic old freighter with barely functional weapons. Threat assessment? Minimal. The drones reported in unison. Combat capability? Negligible. Survival probability? 0.03%. The hegemony representative was more interesting. Bio Admiral Thexka approached Jake directly, her living ship's tentacles writhing with curiosity. "Human Morrison," she said, her voice like grinding gears. "Why do you seek death in our games?" "Who says we're seeking death?" Jake replied. "Maybe we're seeking something else entirely." Thexka studied him with eyes like black holes. "Amusing. You will provide entertainment before you die. This is acceptable." But the most interesting reaction came from someone Jake had not expected. Captain Velran of the Arcturus Federation, a mid-level power that usually managed to survive the first round but rarely advanced further. "I know what you are doing," Velran said quietly, approaching Jake when the others had left. "I have studied human history. You fight differently than the others. You do not always fight fair." "Fair is a relative concept," Jake said carefully. "Indeed. Be cautious, human. The major powers do not tolerate threats to their dominance. Even if you succeed in the first round, they will take notice." "Let them notice," Jake said. "Maybe it's time things changed around here." Velran's expression was unreadable. "Perhaps. Good luck, Captain Morrison. You will need it." The next 3 days passed in a blur of final preparations. The crew worked around the clock, fine-tuning their systems and practicing their coordination. The humans and Velthari had to learn to work together under combat conditions, sharing information and making decisions at the speed of battle. Carlos proved to be an excellent teacher, drilling them on human military tactics while learning Velthari coordination techniques. "Information is only useful if it reaches the right person at the right time," he explained. "We need to be faster than our enemies at adapting to changing situations." Nexhai and Cathara worked on intelligence gathering, analyzing the other ships that would be participating. They identified strengths and weaknesses, probable tactics, and potential alliance patterns. "The Zephyrians will try to eliminate us first," Nexhai predicted. "We represent an unknown factor, and they hate unknowns. The Korthak will ignore us initially, focusing on the greater threats. The hegemony bioships will be curious about our unusual crew composition." "Can we use that curiosity against them?" Jake asked. "Perhaps. Bioships adapt based on the threats they face. If we can present them with something they have never encountered before." Lisa and Yorith spent their time making final adjustments to the ship's systems. The camouflage technology was working perfectly, but they wanted backup plans for their backup plans. "Remember," Lisa said to Yorith, "if the primary stealth system fails, we have the debris field simulation. If that fails, we have the fake distress beacon. If everything fails, we run very fast." Yorith finished with a clicking sound that might have been laughter. Finally, the day of the first round arrived. 12 ships assembled at the designated coordinates, a complex asteroid field that would serve as the battlefield. The rules were simple. Fight until only 4 ships remained operational. Use of weapons of mass destruction was prohibited. Deliberately targeting life support systems was prohibited. Everything else was fair game. Jake looked around at his crew as they took their positions. Carlos at the weapons console, his face calm and focused. Lisa at engineering, her hands dancing over the controls. Nexhai at communications, monitoring all frequencies. Yorith at sensors, her enhanced Velthari senses supplemented by the ship's instruments. Cathara at navigation, ready to guide them through the treacherous asteroid field. "Everyone ready?" Jake asked. Nods and affirmative sounds came from around the bridge. Remember the plan. We are not the strongest ship here or the fastest or the best armed, but we are the most unpredictable. Use that. Make them wonder what we are going to do next, because if they can't predict us, they can't counter us. The starting signal came from the game coordinators. 12 ships spread out through the asteroid field, seeking position and advantage. Immediately, the major powers began their standard opening moves. The Zephyrians formed up and began a systematic sweep, using overwhelming firepower to clear paths through the asteroids. The Korthak ships moved in perfect formation, sharing sensor data and coordinating their attacks with mechanical precision. 3 hegemony bioships spread out to cover maximum territory, their living hulls already beginning to adapt to the environment, and the Lucky Strike simply disappeared. Camouflage active, Yorith reported. We are reading as a large asteroid, on all sensors. Perfect, Jake said. Now we wait and watch. The first elimination came within minutes. A smaller ship from the Rigel Consortium tried to use the asteroids for cover, but got caught between 2 Zephyrian destroyers. Plasma fire lit up the darkness, and the consortium ships' escape pods were launching within seconds. 11 ships remaining, Nexhi reported. The next elimination was more interesting. One of the hegemony bioships had cornered a Korthak vessel, but instead of the usual tactics, the crystal ship had done something unexpected. It had used a resonance weapon to disrupt the bioship's nervous system, causing it to attack itself. That was clever, Carlos said with professional appreciation. The Korthak are learning new tricks. 10 ships remaining, Nexhi announced. 4. The next hour, the Lucky Strike drifted through the battle zone like a piece of space debris, gathering intelligence and staying out of trouble. The major powers were so focused on each other that they paid no attention to one more chunk of rock in an asteroid field, but Jake was watching for his opportunity, and when it came, it was perfect. 2 ships were locked in combat near the center of the field, a Zephyrian heavy cruiser and a massive hegemony bioship that had grown to twice its original size. They were so focused on each other that they had forgotten about everything else around them. This is it, Jake said quietly. Lisa, are you ready with the surprise package? Ready and waiting, Lisa confirmed. Yorith, drop camouflage and give us full power to engines. Camouflage deactivated, full power available. Cathara, plot an intercept course. Make it look like we are running away in panic. Course plotted and laid in. Carlos, wait for my signal. Jake took a deep breath. Everything they had planned for, everything they had worked toward, came down to the next few minutes. All hands, hold on, he said. Time to announce our presence. The Lucky Strike burst out of the asteroid field like a panicked animal. Engines blazing at full power and broadcasting distress signals on all frequencies. To the watching ships, it looked exactly like what everyone expected. A frightened freighter, trying to escape the battle zone. They are running, Admiral Korkshai said with satisfaction aboard his heavy cruiser. The primitives have finally realized they do not belong here. The massive hegemony bioship, locked in combat with the Zephyrian vessel, barely noticed the small ship fleeing past them. Its attention was focused on the enemy weapons tearing into its living hull. But Jake was not running away. He was setting up the most important shot of his life. Cathara, bring us around behind the bioship, he ordered quietly. Use the engine flare from the Zephyrian weapons to mask our approach. Understood, Cathara said, her hands steady on the controls despite the danger they were flying into. Yorith, I need you to scan the bioship's nervous system. Find me the control center. Scanning now, Yorith said, her enhanced Velthari senses working with the ship's instruments. The bioship's brain cluster is located in the forward section, heavily armored, but what? There is a small gap in the armor where the ship has been growing new tissue to repair battle damage. The gap will close in approximately 3 minutes. Lisa, please tell me our surprise package is ready. Lisa grinned from her position at the engineering console. 1 modified mining charge specially designed by yours truly and our Velthari friend here. It will punch through bioship armor and deliver a very unpleasant surprise to the nervous system inside. Will it kill the crew? No, Just knock out the ship's higher brain functions. The crew will be fine, but the ship will go into automatic shutdown mode. Jake nodded. He had no desire to kill anyone, but they needed to eliminate threats to advance in the tournament. Carlos, can you get us close enough for a precision shot? If Cathara can keep us in the engine shadow, and Yorith can guide the targeting system, yes. But we will only get one chance. One chance is all we need. Everyone, ready? The Lucky Strike swooped around behind the massive bioship, using the chaos of battle as cover. The Zephyrian cruiser was pouring plasma fire into the living vessel, trying to burn through its adaptive armor. The bioship was fighting back with energy weapons that grew from its flesh like thorns. Neither combatant noticed the small freighter positioning itself for a kill shot. Target acquired, Carlos reported. Firing solution locked. Fire, Jake ordered. The modified mining charge shot out from the Lucky Strike's cargo bay, looking for all the world like a piece of debris thrown by an explosion. It punched through the bioship's armor exactly where Yorith had predicted and detonated inside the creature's brain cluster. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The massive bioship convulsed once, then went completely limp. Emergency lights began flashing along its hull as automatic safety systems engaged. The ship was alive but unconscious, drifting helplessly through space. Target neutralized, Carlos reported with satisfaction. But Jake was not done yet. Cathara, emergency turn to starboard. Lisa, reactivate camouflage. Yorith, make us look like wreckage from the bioship. The Lucky Strike vanished again, this time disguised as a chunk of bioship hull that had been blown off in the explosion. Admiral Corkshigh, seeing his opponent suddenly disabled, moved in for what he thought would be an easy kill. He never saw the second mining charge coming. This one was not aimed at the ship's hull, but at its primary shield generator. Lisa had calculated the exact frequency needed to cause a resonance cascade in Zephyrian shield technology. When the charge detonated, the cruiser's shields did not just fail. They turned inside out, creating a feedback loop that disabled half the ship's systems. 2 down, Jake said with grim satisfaction as the Zephyrian cruiser limped away, trailing atmosphere and debris. Around them, the battle continued. The Korthak Collective had formed up and was systematically eliminating the smaller ships with their coordinated attacks. 2 more vessels had been disabled, leaving only 6 ships in the fight. We need to move, Carlos said urgently. The Korthak are heading this way. But Jake had been watching the crystal ships with interest. No, wait. I want to see something. First. The 3 Korthak vessels moved in perfect formation, their shared consciousness allowing them to coordinate attacks with mathematical precision. They approached what they thought was bioship wreckage, intending to clear the area before moving on. Jake waited until they were in exactly the right position. Now Yorith, broadcast the signal. Yorith's hands moved over her console, sending out a carefully crafted electromagnetic pulse. It was not powerful enough to damage the Korthak ships, but it did something far more effective. It disrupted their shared communication network for exactly 3 seconds. For a collective consciousness, 3 seconds of isolation was an eternity. The 3 ships, suddenly cut off from each other, began to panic. They fired wildly, not sure what had attacked them or where the threat was coming from. In their confusion, they began targeting each other. Their perfect coordination turned into chaotic friendly fire. When their communications came back online, 2 of the 3 Korthak ships were disabled, and the 3rd was fleeing in confusion. 4 ships remaining, Nexhai announced, her voice filled with something that might have been pride. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They had done the impossible. A cargo freighter crewed by humans and Velthari had eliminated 4 major warships and advanced to the semifinals of the Galactic War Games. But he could see the cost of their success on everyone's faces. They were exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination, and the hardest fights were yet to come. Congratulations, everyone, he said quietly. We just changed the galaxy. Over the next few hours, as the results of the first round spread through the known systems, the reaction was everything Jake had expected and more. Shock, disbelief, anger, and fear rippled through the galactic community. The Zephyrian Empire immediately filed protests, claiming the humans had used illegal weapons. The protests were dismissed when investigators found that everything the Lucky Strike had done was within the rules. The Korthak Collective simply could not understand what had happened. Their analysis of the battle showed clear tactical superiority, perfect coordination, and overwhelming firepower. According to their calculations, they should have won easily. The fact that they had lost to inferior opponents did not compute. The hegemony bioships began evolving new defensive systems, trying to adapt to threats they had never faced before. But how do you evolve defenses against tactics that make no logical sense? Meanwhile, the smaller powers of the galaxy began to take notice. If a human freighter and Velthari scouts could defeat the major species, what did that mean for the balance of power? What other possibilities existed that had never been considered? Captain Velran of the Arcturus Federation sent Jake a private message. "Well done, human. You have given hope to those who had none. Do not waste this opportunity." But the most significant reaction came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the first round, as Jake and his crew prepared for the semifinals, they received a visit from Ambassador Nethka of the Velthari government. The ambassador was ancient even, by Velthari standards, her skin marked with the deep patterns of extreme age and wisdom. She studied Jake and his mixed crew for a long time before speaking. "Young Kethara," she said finally, "you have done something unprecedented. You have made our people visible to the galaxy. The question now is, what will we do with this visibility?" "We will keep fighting," Kethara said without hesitation. "We will show them that being small does not mean being weak." Ambassador Nethka's skin shifted to a thoughtful purple. "Yes," she said slowly. "Perhaps it is time for the Velthari to stop watching from the sidelines. Perhaps it is time to join the game." She turned to Jake. "Captain Morrison, you have my government's official support. Win or lose, you have already accomplished more than anyone thought possible. But if you can go further, we can," Jake said with quiet confidence. "We will." As the ambassador left, Jake looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed in just a few weeks. He had started this journey as a simple merchant captain, looking for a way to prove that humans mattered. Now he was carrying the hopes of 2 species and possibly changing the course of galactic history. The semifinals would be harder. The final round, if they made it that far, would be the greatest challenge any of them had ever faced. But they had come this far by refusing to fight the way everyone expected them to fight, and they were just getting started. "Ready for round 2?" he asked his crew. The answers came back without hesitation. From humans and Velthari alike, the response was the same. "Ready." Outside, the galaxy watched and waited to see what impossible thing they would do next.